Good morning. Data here. I'm about to get back on trail. It's 7:30 in the morning. It's Monday, March 10th, I believe. It's about 32 degrees here. I'm at, excuse me. I'm at Small Axe Farm and Hostel still. I did a zero here yesterday, did some resupply, got caught up on laundry, had a couple of great meals. Wonderful host family. It's a huge place. I had all to myself. You know, it would have been fun to have some company, but it was also kind of nice to have some privacy in this big space. Today's plan is to have Wayne, the guy who picked me up the other day, to take me back to Swift Run Gap, and then I'm headed to from Swift Run Gap to Bearfence Mountain, which I think is about 9.5 or 10.5 miles. Bearfence Mountain Hut is the first hut north of Swift Run Gap, so I'll spend the night there. I'm shortening up distances a little bit compared to the first 4 days because that kind of wore me out. I'm going to go from here to Luray and then on to Front Royal. So I'm going to sit here and enjoy breakfast. Cup of joe, Stinger waffle, a couple of meat sticks, and maybe some oatmeal, maybe not. Then I'll pack up my pack. I've got about an hour left to get ready for Wayne to pick me up. So Small Axe Farm is actually also a working farm, as I've said in another video. You may hear the chickens or the goats in the background, or the dogs, or the roosters. So I've got some audio commentary, which has kind of been fun. So for now, this is Data, getting ready to get back on trail again, and hope y'all are having a blessed Monday. So I'm about a half a mile in of a climb to start the day here on Monday, March 10th. And I've come across my first deer, who is not frightened enough to run away. Oh, there he goes. 2 of them, 3 of them. Sure enough, as soon as I started talking. Oh well, I suspect there may be more. So folks are right when they say that parts of the Shenandoahs are just a walk in the park. I had to spend about an hour hiking gently uphill, not too rough really, to get here. But now that I've reached this first kind of a plateau, I can see a couple 100 feet ahead. And in the wintertime, oh, there went a deer. I think I keep startling them because I talk too much. So I guess if I want to see more wildlife, I need to do less talking. So I'm having quite a productive hiking morning here. It's been very cruisy. The trail you see ahead is the one I just came up, and the whole trail for the last couple of miles has been like that, and wide and well groomed, and most of the blowdown's gone. I'm about 2 hours in, and I've covered a little over 3 miles. It's time for a pack off, boots off break for the day. And I happen to find a nice healthy little sitting rock there. It's almost built like a chair, as if provided by Mother Nature for hikers to take a rest on. And so I'm about a little 3.5 miles or so north of Swift Run Gap. And on top of a nice seat, I have a view. So I'm going to take the boots off. I'm going to take about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to climb up and over that. So I've been climbing now for about a half an hour. And I came across some interesting rock formations. I'd catch a couple of these. Just before this, I did come through some debris fields that look like they're from Lane. They've been cleared really well at this part of the park, but you can tell Mother Nature went to work on it.
And it will take more than one season of Sawyer's getting in there and cutting things out of our hikers' way for it to heal, that's for sure. So I think those of us who love this trail need to think long and hard over the next couple of years about how to build support for the clubs and officials and whomever else are responsible for taking care of our parks and this great trail. Because, as always, this trail is not a natural thing, you know. Mother Nature doesn't really want it here. And she is fully prepared, if we don't take care of it, to reclaim this trail. In fact, I'd suggest Mother Nature trying to reclaim the trail is kind of the natural order of things. And if we don't want that to happen, I'm suggesting we best pay attention. You know, whatever way suits us. Me, I don't do the politic thing. But I am going to look for ways to support my local trail clubs and ATC and whomever else folks might suggest here on this channel get support so that we keep this trail in the great shape other people have in the generations before us. So this feels like one of those pass the torch moments for me. You know, maybe one of the things I get to do in retirement is look after this great trail the way whole bunch of folks for a century have looked after it for me. Because Lord, I'd hate to think that I was among the generation that was given custodianship of looking after this magnificent natural landscape, and then I screwed that up just because I wasn't paying enough attention. So I'm going to think on that, and if anybody wants to comment down below about non-political ways that we could help to support, maintain, and try to get this trail back in shape, I would love to hear that. And then this one turns a corner into another great stone rock face and starts downward. I'm not going to film that because I couldn't imagine being able to hike that and running a camera, because I go right down there where the camera's pointed. But about 2/3 of the way through with my day. The sun's come up. It's probably in the 50s now. And I'm going to take a pack off, shoes off break here and have a snack and hydrate. I'm also going to collect a little bit more water. This is a cabin called the Pusan or Pucon or something like that. I'll put the spelling down in the... well, here it is. Oh, there's a sign. It doesn't have the spelling of this on there, but anyway. It's a cabin that you can rent, I believe, from the Shenandoah National Park, and it's locked otherwise. But there's a spring just a little ways down that it's okay for hikers to use. And if there's no one staying here right now, it looks like it's all locked up, which means there isn't anyone, I don't think. I'm going to sit here and have a snack and a little pack off break. And I don't think you're supposed to camp around it or anything, but somebody has left firewood as if other folks might have snuck up here and done that. Oh yeah, there's a sign, no camping. But it's a charming little cabin. Now if I had to guess, the remnants, the history of the cabin is probably a little less glamorous. I believe this might be one of the cabins left over by the folks who had settled this area originally and from whom this land was taken by the federal government to create the Shenandoah National Park. So that's kind of a part of the sad history of Shenandoah, and anybody watching this would be encouraged to go read up on the lost history of the peoples of Shenandoah National Park. It's wonderful that we have this park. It's probably, I think, important also that we remember that there were other people here first. Native Americans first, and then some other fellow Americans. So, but in the meantime, I'm going to sit down and have a little break and stretch my legs. I've really enjoyed my 20-minute or so pack off, shoes off break here, stretching my feet, but I've also gotten a chance to look at the craftsmanship on this old cabin. It is really nice. So I'm going to shoot some close-ups of stuff, and then in the comments on the video for today, eventually, I will look up some more information about the family that built this. I think this might be one of the original cabins from the folks that had settled the land and then had it taken from them as part of the effort to build the park. And if so, I want to honor that and find out their names. And some of those cabins were relocated. I don't know if that is the case with this cabin, or if this is a facsimile, but I think this might be actually a relocated original. And it is a handsome structure. Certainly, if it's a reconstruction, it's well done. It looks like the beams are all hand hewn. I'm going to walk around it and just... Now, credit to the Parks Department. They've obviously, the Shenandoah National Parks folks have done a nice job of keeping it up over the years. It's got a little window up on the top of it here. I made sure no one was staying here before I started walking around and shooting it. But looks like they've done a nice job of maintaining it, updating it a little bit. The roof is obviously new, but they have put shingles on it, I think. And there's a picnic table that is just replete with graffiti. Everybody who's come by here has carved their name in it, and it's a really old oak table, so some of the graffiti probably goes back a way. I'm not gonna add to that. That's got to be one of the creepiest looking burls on a tree that I have ever seen. This is the Lewis Mountain Campground, which is closed this time of year. But you can see, I don't know, 8 or 10 bear boxes or more. Each little campsite's paved and has a picnic table and a bear box and a fire pit, and it's really nice. I think Mrs. Data and I might come up here and camp sometime. It would be really lovely once it's open later on in the summer. But having said that, one of those reasons why I wanted to hike Shenandoah in the winter is that I can look this direction where I came from, and this direction toward the campground, and this direction where I'm going, and I do not see another living soul. And I'm sure that in the summertime, this campground is swamped with people. This just looks like such a fun place to hang out, especially if you had a family and maybe some folks in your family had limited mobility and they could only get around a few short trails or around the campground, but you had kids, like when I was little and we would come to places like this, who wanted to go run and play in the woods. This would just be a beautiful little, and I think it's a primitive campground. I don't even see any electrical outlets, or I think there is a water source nearby, but I'm not even sure about that. But anyway, it's a campground tucked up here in the middle of the Shenandoahs. Isn't that nice? So I just came up the trail from the Lewis Mountain Campground, and there were some additional rustic cabins, which also look like they're closed and locked, like the one that I had lunch at, but where you could also rent a place to stay. So Mrs. Dade and I may look at that. But then I, at the very northern end of the campground, stumbled across this communication post of some sort. There's a big power line running through it also, and some sort of a satellite dish on top of it. And yes, I went ahead and checked cell signal, and I have 2 bars and 4G up here. So in case anybody ever gets up around Lewis Campground and needs a cell signal, you can absolutely find one up here. So now I'm on the fire road down to the Bearfence Hut. And I don't want this to sound like a complaint, but I do think that northbounders in particular should be advised, really even southbounders, that as you hike north, you're going to come on the Far Out app up on a marker that says there's a parking area for this hut. You have to hike all the way up to that parking area and then make a right and come back the direction you just hiked about half a mile to get to the hut down this fire road. And the only thing that's kind of a little tweaky about that is that the AT is literally right up on that ridge right there, about 100 yards up there. So as you're northbound, you hike right past the hut. It's on your right-hand side, about 100 feet down the hill to your right. And yet there is no path. There's no bushwhacked path. I think it's steep enough you probably couldn't make one, and I wouldn't hike like that. But this does mean that, you know, especially when you're northbound, you can add a mile on your hike just to get down the fire road to this particular hut and back up. I'm hoping what that means is that this nice service road has meant that this hut is well maintained, and the others have been, so I'm not too concerned about that. But I am glad that I planned a short 8.4 mile hike today, because this little jaunt down the fire road probably made it more like 9.4 or 10 in reality. And I guess I must have missed that on far out. It's probably in there somewhere. But I guess I'm coming on a good sign here, because I'm to the Bearfence Hut, and we've got water flowing right through the middle of the fire service road, so I'm assuming there's probably even better flow downhill somewhere or uphill. And here's the privy. One of the nice things about privies in Shenandoah is they have full-size doors, and better yet, they have latches on the outside as well as the inside. So you put a little stick in it, or this one may even have an actual latch on it. Yeah. And keep it closed when it's cold. And when you open it up, especially if you leave the seat down, it's actually not as freezing cold as the rest of the environment is. And I don't know about you all, but when I'm hiking, having a privy that is slightly above freezing is very helpful to my morning routine. So here we come up on Bearfence Shelter, they call it. I think online it's still called Bearfence Hut. So I'm a little confused about the nomenclature here in Shenandoah right now. But I can see a bear box and a bear pole right there in front of me. And there's some footprints in the mud, but I don't see any other people yet. There wasn't anybody at the parking area, so I have a debate with myself now. Do I want to set up in this hut, which looks like it gets used by locals and not well cleaned out, for instance, in the fire pit? Or do I want to set up in tents somewhere? So I'm going to look around and make that decision. There are two bear poles, one here and one here. And this nice big new bear box and a label for the spring. So I'm going to set up camp now. Had a pretty good hiking day today. And I did 8.4 plus this fire service road, and it's only 3:40. So time to set up camp. Okay, so that's the Bearfence Hut, which is downhill from me 100 yards or so, and it is such a wreck that I am not sleeping in it tonight, even though right now there's no one else here. There is litter on the inside of it. The paint on the wooden floorboards and supports is peeling bad enough that it's clear it hasn't been painted in years. The fire pit I showed you clips of earlier, and that mess of half-burnt major logs goes all the way around the shelter for 15 or 20 feet in every direction. There's also a pretty good amount of evidence down on the flats near the shelter that people come here on, I don't know, the weekends or whatever, and camp outside of the designated camping areas. There's even litter and such in the ashes left in the fire pit. So that, and the fact that online there are a lot of notations that says it is just a mice-infected heaven, means I'm staying away from it. So instead, I decided tonight would be my first night on this trip for pitching my beloved Durston. There you have it. Weather's supposed to be pretty gentle, not too hot, not too windy. No rain is expected. So this is the version of the pitch that Durston recommends is kind of the basic pitch with just 4 stakes. I've added one more down there for the vestibule, but I don't need to tie out any of the guy lines on the sides. It went up pretty fast. From pulling it out of the backpack toward what you see here was maybe 15 minutes max. Now obviously I haven't loaded all my gear into it yet or not, but you can see kind of the image of the sun setting on it, so the sun should rise toward my feet. The camping spot that's designated by the National Park is pretty level and pretty big. It tilts downward away from where I'm standing now just a little bit, but I'll just sleep that direction. It'll be fine. Now, for some reason, this side of it is nice and taut and pulled out the way it should be. The side over here is not quite as taut, but I think pitching a Durston is kind of a work of art that you get better at each time you do it. So this time for me, for a 15-minute pitch, this went pretty smoothly and looks pretty decent. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to set up the inside of my tent living area and then fix some dinner and do some planning, because it's still only about 4:30. And I might check back in later with a summary. I might just wait till tomorrow morning, because I am going to try to get out of here really early tomorrow morning, because I got about 11.5 or 12 miles to do tomorrow to get into my next hut. So this is data from Bearfence Hut / shelter camp with his first pitch of his Durston X mid 2-person solid, the poly sill version, not the pricier Dyneema version. So I'll let you know how this does this evening out here in the wild in the on the AT. And in case this is the last clip for the night, then good night. So my tent is all set up now. Got the personal stuff I'll need tonight at one end, the backpack and the other stuff at the other end. The mat's inflated. The NEMO sleeping bag is busy lofting. And my little piece of plastic as a doormat out front like this, so I don't track dirt inside the tent too much. And over on the other part of this campsite, which is turning out to be a really nice little campsite, have a set of flat rocks so I can kind of set up a little kitchen area. Tonight's dinner is going to consist of some beef stroganoff, which actually is pretty good for this kind of a meal. So it'll be beef stroganoff with 2 packets of organic olive oil in it to add some really easily accessible calories. Bumps the whole calorie count up to probably 1,000 calories or something. I don't know if I'll even be able to eat it all, but it's pretty tasty. Then I'll warm it up in that little reflected bag right there. Eat it with a wooden spoon, sitting on either this other little sit rock over here, or on the other side of my tent is a log that's in the sun. So all in all, you know, tonight's campsite's working out really well. Nobody has shown up yet at the shelter, but I don't care. I now believe everything about the bad reputation of that shelter, and I hope someone brings this to the attention via my YouTube posting here or elsewhere, that the Shenandoah National Parks folks need to get to work on this one shelter right now. It's a little embarrassing. That's how bad a shape it's in. Especially because all of the other shelters in Shenandoah have been in pretty good shape. So, you know, I was really surprised and disappointed that somebody held some massive party here, evidently probably over the weekend, and nobody from the National Park has been back to clean up or look at it or anything. So, a little disappointing in that sense. Meanwhile, I'm up on the hill. I'll be turning in early tomorrow, getting an early start tomorrow. I have an 11.5 mile day to the next hut, and I'm going to try to do like I did today and hike early and fairly quickly, and then get to camp early and maybe set up the Durston again. So this has been really a pleasant day and a pleasant evening. So This is Data on Trail, signing off for today.